Is Russia's offensive in Avdiivka finally showing some results? And how can Ukraine respond? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. It's October 17th, 2023. This is your daily Ukraine update. Let's get into it. Okay, first, taking a look at the combat map, or the control map, excuse me. Biggest change in the last 2 days, right? You can see this last update was the 14th. In the last 2 days, we've seen significant Russian advances in and around the Severne Vodiane region. You can see primarily it is this windbreak here. When we total it out, it is probably around 500 to 700 meters. Yeah, you can see about 683 meters here at its, though if we do the furthest point, I think maybe you could argue they've advanced 1 kilometer, which in 2 days is for this conflict is still a significant advance. Now, if the reports are to be believed, it still is a really, really, really tough fight and has incurred a massive number of casualties. The other thing that's worth noting is that while this prong is progress, certainly, and it's closing the distance to this Tonenki, you could see that they aren't actually that much closer to an urban area, right? And what I mean by that, you could see here, if their goal is to get to Severne, you could see southern tip of Severne to the closest Russian front line is about 1.2 kilometers. And then when we take a look at this here, you can see they haven't actually advanced towards Severne, and getting from the southernmost point of Tonenki to here is still 1.58, right? So they are not actually closer to seizing any Ukrainian towns or strongholds, or they're not closer to the nearest Ukrainian town or stronghold. But that said, this is the direction broadly that Russian forces need to push in order to achieve their operational objective of encircling Avdiivka. Now, looking to the south here, you can see there's also been some advances up the center, so to speak. Russian forces advancing towards this major highway towards the city center. And I think this is considerably more dangerous for Ukrainian forces, because if Russian forces can get into these forested areas, much of the Ukrainian superiority in things like artillery and drone observation is going to be negated. It's going to look more like a yard by yard fight. And we know that Russia prefers these yard by yard fights because they can rely on human wave tactics. Or again, doctrinally, we'd call them frontal assaults in order to get incremental gains at considerable casualties. But that is a workable strategy when you can negate a lot of Ukrainian advantages in their artillery, armored vehicles, etc. So this is something that is somewhat more worrying. I worry less about these sort of prongs. Again, Avdiivka will not necessarily be encircled unless they actually start to close the distance, which we could see. I'm not going to say that they can't. I'm just observing that this is right now, while an advance in the direction that they want, there is still likely a lot of hard work involved in taking either of these towns, which are absolutely essential to completing the Russian objective of encircling Avdiivka. Looking over at the combat map, you can see Russian forces concentrating their attacks in and around Avdiivka, exactly where we talked about: Vodiane, Optina, downtown Avdiivka, Krasnohorivka, as well as outside Volodar, and counterattacks in and around Robtina and Kurdyumivka. So, a pretty standard operational pace by Russia. I think Russia is now focusing on its own war of attrition, given that the Ukrainian counteroffensive, in their assessment, is largely over, right? The times where there's most likely to be a breakthrough is over, and Ukraine is going to have to start making tough calls about stabilizing the front lines in Avdiivka. So that may mean diverting combat power, as we talked about, from these other fronts to the Avdiivka region in order to provide the necessary support to Ukrainian troops conducting their defense of Avdiivka. Moving on, the only other, basically just confirmation of this from Warmapper. He talked about it actually 4 days ago. This advance outside Vodiane. But other than that, there's not really been a ton of change. Now, you guys may know, if you're interested to see, the fighting footage from this conflict is really heavy. It is extremely, extremely heavy fighting. And I can't show you the footage here on YouTube. So I'm going to be dropping it today on Combat Vet News. This is where I do all my deep dive combat footage analysis. It's also the best place to support me. You know that covering the Ukraine conflict, advertisers aren't a big fan of war content. So I rely primarily on you guys to keep me and the team up and running. So if you're interested in becoming a member, any one of these tiers will get you access to the members only content. And of course, lieutenants, colonels get a special shout out. And I can't even show you the thumbnails from the members only content because YouTube is going to demonetize me. They have demonetized me when I've shown just the thumbnails. So thank you guys, as always, for your support. I appreciate you so much. Now, taking a look at the Institute for the Study of War, who's observing that, yes, Russia probably has reinforced Avdiivka with at least some units from the Central Military District. Russian forces, again, making some gains, though, at a pretty glacial pace. Ukrainians are reporting that they've repelled 22 Russian attacks in a single day, which they claim is a result of fewer attacks reported October 15th. But you can't necessarily run this math. This isn't really how it works. An attack could be a squad of 5. It could be 22 squads of 5, or it could be 30 large armored columns attacking simultaneously. What is 2 attacks, right? This sort of counts. They're a good ballpark to help in the aggregate, but it's hard to distinguish when you have small changes in attacks. Right? Of course, Russian forces are using air and artillery strikes to help soften the targets for ground offensives. But Ukrainian fortifications are very heavy surrounding Avdiivka. Again, you see Shoigu using this terminology, active defense, which they claim is prohibiting Ukrainian advances, not like the Ukrainians were working to actually advance in Avdiivka at all. So this is, again, classic Kremlin spin BS. Anyway, that's all I had for you guys. Be sure to check us out today at combatvetnews.com, where we're dropping the video of the fighting here in Avdiivka. Thanks to our Colonel tier members. Thanks to all of our Lieutenant tier members. I really couldn't do this without you guys. And of course, thanks to all the members of the site. I appreciate you guys so much, and I'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.